This is Star Luster by Namcot, a Japanese exclusive arcadey space sim that definitely seems to take its inspiration from something. Not sure what, though. The point of the game is to patrol the many different quadrants of space, trying to engage alien forces and eliminate them before they harm civilian planets or structures. This game has 3 different modes, although they're more or less just difficulty changes. You start with Training Mode, which is a basic seek and destroy mission. Essentially, you start out on this map, you locate the enemy, you activate warp speed, and then engage the enemy. Command Mode adds planets and asteroid fields. You must protect the planets from being destroyed by the enemy spaceships. And if they are in threat of being destroyed, you can hop into an asteroid field to try and seek out a power-up that will repair the planet. And Adventure Mode basically just multiplies the number of planets, asteroid fields, and enemies by a factor of 5. So, fun. Now once you've entered combat, it's up to you to engage the enemies. Your spaceship controls decently enough, your lasers do a decent amount of damage, and you even have a very ahead of its time regenerating shield. And I'm just going to point out how incredibly thrilled I am that that's here. But regardless, once you engage the enemy, you have to hunt them down in a sort of 3D spatial environment. But because this game can't do 3D, it works based off of 2D planes. Even the display for where the enemies are located on your radar is in 2D. And that's seriously the biggest problem with this game. While moving around and fighting enemies is decent enough, although your ship feels very slow comparatively, even when you engage the boosters. After playing this game a few times, I still have trouble trying to understand whether the radar is telling me that the enemy is directly in front of me and I just have to keep going straight, if they're above me, or if they're somehow behind me. And that goes back to the 2D display. I've played a few other 2D flight sims like this, and they all pretty much suffer from the same problem, that they have trouble conveying depth, and because of this, it's hard to tell where your opponent is in relation to you. And while that is, simply on paper, annoying, you're also on something of a time limit to save those planets, because they can get destroyed while you're in combat, so if you take too long fighting one group of enemies, you might lose several planets, and potentially lose the game. I do like the fact, however, that if you're damaged beyond what your regenerating shield can protect you from, you can go to one of the various satellites out in space, and they'll repair you. They'll also upgrade your ship, giving you a better shield, more fuel so you don't have to back off from fighting as much, or even better lasers. I definitely like the upgrade system. I think that was a very cool idea. The music in this game is basically non-existent. I'm not sure if that was simply a lack of budget or room on the cartridge, or a conscious decision to avoid adding music altogether because there's no sound in space. Except that there's still sound effects, which are pretty stock, and there's still an opening and ending jingle to the game. So, I'm just guessing they didn't have space, but maybe I'm just cynical like that. It does look really impressive, and it does feel like it takes a lot of cues from Star Wars. For example, the cabin of your spaceship looks suspiciously like the cabin of an X-Wing. There are enemies that look suspiciously like A-Wings, as well as really thin ships which remind me of those terrible, stupid B-Wings. And something that looks something like a small moon. Wait a minute. That's no small moon. And I definitely enjoy the effect of engaging hyperdrive. It does make you feel like you're moving past all the stars and stuff at really high speeds, and it's very cool. I really enjoyed that. Now it is an arcade game, so most of the replay value comes from getting the high score, and when you beat the game you get a ranking, so you can try and beat that next time to get a better title. Although I'm not honestly certain how much you'd want to come back and play this game, just because of how frustrating it is to figure out where your opponents and you are spatially relative to one another. And because of that, this game is far more frustrating than it should be. In the end, if you want a fun, arcadey spaceship simulator, go to Good Old Games, spend $10 and go pick up TIE Fighter. And play the 1995 version. I know there's a 98 version. That version is in fact a trap. You want the 95 version. Trust me on that one. And then once you've beaten that a couple dozen times, and you want to dust off your Famicom, and you still have pocket change, because this game won't cost you very much, just go back and play TIE Fighter again. Then maybe play this. Because it's honestly not that great. But it is a fun distraction. If only for 5, maybe 10 minutes.